everything is so much about AI now, and you're looking at getting funding or investment in anything. If you don't have AI littered all over everything, no one even looks at it. And so for me, I'm kind of grappling with this concept of this. Well, it's not a concept, right? We have a product and a service where we work with teams to go from assessment through to doing. Was the secret was actually in teams, because teams is the unit of work within a business. It's like if you think, of a unit of an organization like an organism, right? Teams of cells, they come together. Good cells infect good cells, that grows, and bad cells does the same thing.
Running a business can feel lonely, especially when the decisions get heavy. Welcome to CEO Whisperer by Saurabh Jain. Practical insights from the boardroom and the meditation cushion. I'm Saurabh. I've done 10,000 hours in 3 major parts of my life. I've spent 10,000 hours being a CEO, 10,000 hours being a board member, and 10,000 hours meditating. What we're going to do in each episode is really unpack a real business challenge that a CEO is facing and see if we can work through it together. Enjoy. G'day guys, Saurabh here again. Today we've got Danny Bearzatto with us. Danny, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm co-founder of a company called Structured Creative. We're a niche consultancy, and really what we're about is turning strategy into reality through high-performing teams.
Yep.
That's our way of doing things.
Yep.
And we do that really through a combination of using structured problem solving kind of methods, combined with a lot of neuroscience and data-based evidence to actually make things happen in businesses.
Yep. Brilliant. So the way we run this podcast, we always kind of try to workshop a problem together. So what's top of mind for you today? What's kind of causing you grief?
So I wouldn't say causing grief. What I would say is trying to tap into opportunity is what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
So
Explain more.
Yeah. So part of Structured Creative, we've been working on a sort of product and a service called Top Teams.
Mm-hmm.
And to give some context about what it is, that's probably important for everybody to understand. So what it came from was both my partner, Katie, and she's sort of in more the leadership development, high-performing teams domain.
Your personal partner, business partner?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
There you go.
Yeah, so one of those
Great
few
combo.
exactly right. Yeah. And so through her career running leadership development, then my career working in organizations around sort of more that strategy and transformation domain, both coming up against the same issue of not moving the system in an organization and going, how do we do that? And so she came up from that leadership angle of going, well, I'm running these leadership courses. We're having with these big companies, and people on these courses are loving them and getting a lot out of it. But when they go back to their job, nothing changes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. She uses the analogy of, which I really quite like, which is you take a fish out of the dirty water, put them in a clean pond for a bit, and then put them back in the dirty water. Well, they're going to get dirty.
Yep.
And I had the same experience from a strategy and a transformation point of view going, okay, we've got these businesses and we're trying to get them to work in a different way and move in different ways. And you have these teams that do stuff, but then they go back to their business and that's the same thing all over again.
Back in the old habit again.
Right. And so we were like, well, how do we change this? And so Katie went on this mission to really look for, well, what's out there? What can we look at to actually unlock this? And what we kind of landed on was the secret was actually in teams, because teams is the unit of work within a business. It's like if you think, of a unit of an organization like an organism, right? They are cells. Teams of cells, they come together. Good cells infect good cells, that grows, and bad cells does the same thing. And so we were trying to find, well, actually, what frameworks are out there when it comes to teams? What can we leverage to do that? And we didn't find anything that met our requirement of having a really strong evidence base. And so, so we looked at all the common frameworks and literature, and I was like, okay, well, they were nice, but there's no evidence that that was the right thing.
Sure.
And that didn't hit our standard. But then we looked at academia, and same kind of thing happened, but different in that academia tries to narrow down the band of variabilities. And so looking at just 1 or 2 factors, but we've all worked in businesses, they're bloody complex. Mm-hmm. You can't just narrow down to, do this one thing and magic happens. It doesn't work like that. Or the studies they did do were kind of contrived, because that's what academia does. It says, okay, we're going to get a bunch of MBA students to come in for an evening. We're going to build a bridge out of spaghetti. We're going to do a survey, and that's teams. It's like, well, they're not real. There's no politics in that team. There's no ego in that team. And so none of it hit the mark for us. So we went apart and we said, stuff it, we're doing the research ourselves. So we over the past 8 years done all that. So we've got longitudinal data, and the great thing at the back of that is what we've got. So it's multiple measurement points for different teams. Is now we have a statistically validated like regression model that has causality of what creates high performing teams.
Okay.
And so what that means is that when a team does our assessment and we see their results, we know with a high level of certainty that if you actually do these things, they will have these flow-on impacts, which will in turn improve team performance. So
what's the opportunity that you're trying to get?
So the thing that I'm grappling with is, in a world of AI, in effect, what we have is anti-AI, because AI can't replicate this. And if anything, what AI says about high-performing teams, our data says is wrong.
Well, AI will say what the average of what people say, right? And the average is probably average.
Well, and not just average, but a lot of the, it favors whatever literature, et cetera, is out there. And we looked at that same literature. It was not founded on evidence. It was founded on hearsay or people's opinions. And there's lots of, the amount of books you can get on team development, team building and all that sort of stuff. It's just like you could fill this room. and so in a world of that, for me, what I'm kind of grappling with is everything is so much about AI now, and you're looking at getting, funding or investment in anything. If you don't have AI littered all over everything, no one even looks at it. And so for me, I'm kind of grappling with this concept of this. Well, it's not a concept, right? We have a product and a service where we work with teams to go from, assessment through to doing and through to improvement, and work with multiple teams and organizations to do that. And everyone wants AI, and then we're like the anti-AI. So I'm kind of grappling with, just grappling with that scenario in my head that, and yeah.
So let me try to get in a couple of words. So it's to tap into the opportunity of using AI or battling against AI in these scenarios. Like, what is it?
Well, look, so within our product, do we use AI for point bits of it? Yeah, we do. I mean, so we have, when it comes to communicating in anything, storytelling is extremely powerful. So we have an agent that we have specifically built, which helps tell a team story in a very whimsical way to make it more fun and entertaining for people, that's still relatable, but has enough distance from their reality that they can look at it with some perspective. So yeah, we use AI for sure. But it was more about, in a market that's kind of demanding everything to be AI, when your product and your service is actually at its core, most definitely not. It's a very, I suppose in a way you'd call it traditional, because it's a statistical,
still people-based,
it's a
right?
statistical model based on data that then helps people to improve, and then helps those teams to improve, and helps the system around them to improve. So it's more just that kind of, maybe it's perception kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, to help it into words, is it that, how do you compete in a world of AI where the default is people use AI coaches or AI team building events, and you've also got kind of old world but newish world, like it's not traditional team building. They've got some new method that you guys have figured out. Is how do you kind of sell that, get that adopted, get scale, monetize that? Is that the problem to solve?
Yeah, that's more
Okay.
that's more of the problem. Yep.
So it's how do I what is it for you? Is it monetize, scale? Like what is the metric that you care about?
Well,
Impact?
So the end one is impact, right? So we want to have an impact that, everybody in whatever job and work that they do has an enjoyable experience. They get meaning and purpose out of what it is that they're doing in that day through the team that they're in, right? That's what we want to have. Now, when that happens, we know that we will get income out of that, because that's the outcome. And so we're really focused on that as the outcome.
So if you do good impact, you'll get good monetization.
Correct.
It'll kind of come by itself. It'll chase it very quickly.
Yeah, because if we lose sight of that and just focus solely on monetization, we risk losing the impact, and the impact is the value.
So maybe it's, how do I get impact by implementing, and what do you call your model? Like, what do you call
teams?
How do I get impact by implementing top teams? Is that it? Or is it, how do I get impact by convincing execs to implement top teams?
Yeah, in a world when it's not AI, is the part. And it's not that we're coming up against that as a barrier per se. If anything, sometimes it's a bit refreshing for people that it's not. And it's a bit more, I don't know, natural, I suppose. But yeah, just that whole thing of, it's not AI and just trying to, sell that and monetize that, when, if anything, if you add AI on something, it gets all the money.
And I mean, let me just ask a few questions to give that a bit more color. Because I'm guessing what happens now, right, is organizations think, how do we get more efficiency out of our staff? Because that's what they do every day of the week. They're thinking, do I implement Copilot? Do I train my guys on Claude? Or do I get Danny to implement top teams for us?
Yeah.
So it's more like, how do you kind of compete for those dollars?
Yep. How do I compete for those dollars? And then on top of that, you mentioned earlier around, AI coaches and all those kinds of things, competing against them when, and I'm not saying this to be arrogant. I'm saying this because we have the data that proves it. And we know that
your method works better.
We know that those coaches are wrong, because we know what those coaches are trained on and what they're built on, and what they're built on is, fiction.
Yeah. Okay. Well, take us back. Like, how did you get into this game? How did you come up with this top team? What's the backstory?
So the backstory is really around, it's kind of what I said earlier, in that we kind of figured that this was the key to unlocking, whether it be well-being at work, but also unlocking change at scale. Even before that,
how did you figure out that there was a problem that needed solving?
Well, I mean, in reality, through trying other things. So, from Katie's work that she does, like working with leaders, and so taking them out of their day job to do these amazing training courses where they learn lots of stuff, but then putting them back in and going, it's not moving the system. So we know the individual leaders of the teams, they have the skill, they have the desire, because they told us they had the desire, and they had these really moving experiences. But then when they go back into the system doesn't enable them to do that. And then from my side of things, looking at from, say, a big strategic change perspective or a new strategy, working with the executive teams on that, and them sort of buying into those concepts and what's going to happen, but then saying, okay, now let's make it happen. And then that going into the business and nothing changing, right? Or the first thing changing, the first cog moves, you're like, okay, great, momentum has started, but then the system takes over. Yeah. And then everything stops.
So there's probably two things there, right? I guess the first one, you said that people just kind of snap into their old habits. You go do, I don't know, all this super well-being training or leadership training or goal-setting training.
Yep.
You go back to your desk, you got 100 emails, and you just got to pound through them all.
Yep.
That kind of makes sense. And the other one, I mean, I've experienced in the same organization that we used to work with a decade ago. Initially, I was part of the strategy team, did a great strategy for the division I was responsible for, presented it to the CEO, to the execs. They loved it. And I kind of asked, the guy I was working with, so what do we do now? I was like, oh, now it's up to the business. And nothing happened.
Yep.
I thought, oh, that's a waste.
It is.
We did all this work and they were probably never going to adopt it anyway.
Yeah.
But it would have looked great in an exec pack, great in a board pack.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no connection with reality.
That's right. Yeah. And so through trying, okay, well, how do we get things to work? So one of the things that I used to do a lot was around what I would call a model office. And so you would create this change, a small scale end-to-end version of the change, and that would become the new cell. And then your aim was to then have, them high performing, and then you would move other people into that team, grow the size of that team, and then they become that new way of looking at things. And so that sort of cell-based growth was kind of the underlying principle of that. Kind of worked at a change level, but then looking at that going, well, that's a great way of doing things. However, it can take a lot of time. And so we're looking at going, well, how do I scale that? And that's when we sort of looked at pairing both those two things together, saying, well, the team is where that happens. And if the team is all working and knows, well, how do they fit into their broader organizational context? What is their purpose? Why are those individuals on this team? What are those practices that we have as a team to actually be high performing? If you have those things in place, then change, whatever that change might be, can happen.
Yeah.
And so whether that's an executive level, and that change is a new strategy, taking a new market or a new product, whatever it might be, or whether that's much more, tactical or smaller scale, say for, I don't know, say an R&D function, where they gain an appreciation that they're part of a broader system. And if they're, developing, I don't know, new flavorings for food, but not engaging with the customer team and not engaging with the supply chain, then what are they designing it for?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So tell me about some of the things you tried before you figured out that they weren't working. Like if maybe a couple of concrete examples as much as you can anonymously about historical context.
Yeah.
Like what are some of the problems you tried to solve and what are some of the things you did where people then just snapped into old habits or it just didn't get implemented?
Yeah. So
Like, what's conventional thinking in this space?
Yeah. So conventional thinking would be, if you think of any transformation project, and we've all been part of probably too many of them, right? What they try to do is, centralize that transformation. They try to create one way of doing something outside of the area in which will receive said change.
And they often do that because they don't have the confidence the team could do it themselves.
Correct.
So they kind of take that responsibility off them, say, we know better than you do, so we'll go tell you the best way to do your job.
That's right. And so, I've been a consultant most of my life, right? So, I've been that team of we know it better than you. And so having done that and then seeing, okay, well, we had an impact. So we took it out of that, we designed it centrally, we tried to transplant that into this new thing.
And what would happen?
It would work for a little bit. Like you would get, worst case, it'd be organ rejection and nothing happens. But, your best case, you'd get kind of 12 to 18 months of change and then it would kind of dissipate. Now, to get that kind of level of change required a lot of hand-holding and babysitting. And as a consultant, the projects where, as a consulting organization, we were in a benefit share arrangement, then we would be there for long enough to help them. Right?
So you would have done figure out the new process and you would help them implement it.
And then, regular check-ins over that time to kind of coach them through that.
And what part of that didn't work? Like if you're kind of there, my theory is you're there anyway, you're reinforcing it. Change should actually work with a traditional method?
It did, but then as soon as you stepped away from that, because they weren't the natural creators and owners of the change, it was almost waiting for organ rejection. And so then, that was
waiting for you to disappear.
It would eventually happen. Yeah. But then there's other projects where it wasn't like that longer term, where you'd be there, implement it, it would work for sort of 2-3 months in that client go, okay, we got it from here. And then you go have a coffee, you catch up with them 6 months later, and that's just gone back to how it was because they were never the owners of that change.
Okay.
And so it was, just waiting for that opportunity to go back to the norms.
So do you think like when you implemented those processes, like they were never going to work, people just always thought this external consultant created it, it's not right for us? Or was it more so the new process had missed nuances of the business?
Look, there's ranges of things that happen there. So there are some situations where absolutely things just miss the mark. But I think there's just a natural underlying human thing, the whole not created here syndrome. And unless there is that true feeling of ownership that we're doing this because we want to, and we know why it matters, and we understand why there is a greater purpose for this happening. Now, people won't always be comfortable that, okay, we're doing this and this does mean that eventually jobs somewhere in this organization will be lost. No one wants to be in that position. But when people have an appreciation for the fact that actually doing this means that as a business, you can grow faster or grow differently, they'll start to get that appreciation if they are the ones that are driving that at that kind of grassroots level.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is why when I talked about that sort of more model office style of approach, that's kind of what we did there. We said, well, this is yours. You're going to make this work. And it was light on with the consultants, very light, and they would actually go about it and you would just nudge and tweak and they'd change the process and you're more continuous improvement, but rapid continuous improvement, I would call it. And within 6 weeks, you go, great, now we have this new way. And this team would be loving it. They would be smashing their targets and the rest of the teams around them would be like, well, I want some of that.
Why did you pick this as a problem to solve? Because it's one of those problems you can kind of start trying to fix, not knowing if you will actually ever succeed. Well, why even pick this?
Well, part of it is I have a perverse desire for things that are hard. So I like hard problems. I don't like easy problems. You know, the amount of startup ideas, etc., that I've chucked in the bin because they were just easy and someone else went and solved them, made a lot of money. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But I have a desire for hard things and things that haven't been solved before. But also from seeing when it's done right, the flywheel effect of impact that can happen really quickly and how much better it can make people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that, but my only counter would be is if someone hasn't solved it, it obviously means it's hard.
Yeah.
And it's great because it means you can apply your intellect, which is obviously great, and you can
Mm.
apply it to a very, focused problem. But it also means it takes many iterations to get it right.
I agree.
So you've gone through probably many iterations, and it's just a lot of work.
It is. No, it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, where we've got it to now, we are at a point where, and we've been working with a professor from Monash Uni, and the reliability of the model is ridiculously high. And so we know the work that we've done is
Has been impacted.
sound,
Okay.
right?
Okay, makes sense.
And so we've kind of, if you will, kind of cracked that kind of the DNA, if you will, of what makes a high performing team. We know that now.
Yeah. So
and-
what is the elevator pitch? Like, what are the main variables that you guys focus on for top teams? If you had to elevator pitch, what would you say it does?
So I'll start from the benefit point of view. So when two teams actually run through the exercise of top teams, what we see is 20 to 30% increase in employee engagement. We see 40+% reductions in desire to leave. We see 20+% improvements in productivity of the team. So when it comes to those, cost of people leaving, the cost of low productivity from either not being happy with your job or just not having the processes in place to do it, all of those things go in the right direction. So from a business performance improvement perspective, this is, low touch, big impact. So that's the benefit sell. The other part of it that makes this really accessible is when people see their data and they see it in the model, it makes sense. The number of people that say this is kind of common sense. It's like, well, maybe, but if no one's done it before, then obviously it's not common. But it
is sensical.
But it's sensical, right? And so within people, they go, well, that makes a lot of sense. And if anything, it's a bit of a relief. So let me give you a good example, right? Trust. Trust is a big one. Everyone talks about trust, okay? And so trust, though, if you think about it in its essence, isn't something you do. It's something that you feel. It emerges from situations. And so you think about that in a work context. What's important in work is that we trust each other to do the work we're here to do. Because that's what we're at work for, work to do a job.
Yep.
And so, good example of that is I trust my plumber to do my plumbing, right? I might know him really well. We might have gone to school together. We might have grown up in the same area, know the same people. I trust him, right? We might even have some really deep conversations. We might share some things, right? It might be vulnerable. But I don't trust him to babysit my kids. I don't trust him to do my taxes because it's contextual. Trust is contextual to what it is. Like some of my best mates, I trust them to have some heartfelt conversations with them. Would I trust them to do, would I trust them to work for me in my business? No. And so that's why, so trust is contextual. So when we look at that, what drives that? And so our model tells us what actually drives trust. You don't build trust by doing a trust fall, right? Like whatever. You build trust by, if you think about it, the teams you've been in that are great, where you trust the team members, you trust them because you've delivered together. You've delivered great results, and that's why you trust each other. But then as soon as those results fall off, that trust goes down. And so how do you assure results keep happening? Well, you have the right practices in place. You do things around accountability, around prioritization, around collaboration, problem solving. If you have those practices in place, then performance keeps going up and trust is sustained. And so that is one of the things that we look at. So, we don't do trust falls because they don't work, but the data says don't work on trust, work on those practices and that will drive
That will lead to
performance,
trust.
which will lead to trust.
So your methodology is you'll have, whatever sort of variables, perhaps trust is one of them. You'll figure out what an organization is lacking. And then you've got some data proven methods to build that up.
Yes.
And that will hopefully be more stickier than like the old school training methods.
Well, and also the way that we do this is because we run an assessment with the team, and our approach is to assess two data points. So one is at the start. From that, there's a roadmap of what you do. And then there's another measurement point 6 months later. And so what that does is create accountability. And so, earlier I said that the projects where as consultants, you would have a longer term engagement, that change would stick for longer. That's what we do. So 6 months time, so they know that after we do that first measure in 6 months time, if they look the same or worse, what does that say about them as a
something
team?
hasn't worked, yeah.
Right. And so then they actually want to make that change happen. They want to own it. And because they're not talking about, oh, let's do some, I don't know, esoteric exercise on whatever. It's like, no, let's get better in the day-to-day of what we do, and that will make us a better team. So it's not complex things we're putting in place. Like we're doing things like, let's get clear on accountability. So who's accountable for what decisions can everybody make? That is, generally lacking in most businesses. And
who do you sell to? Like, who's your customer? Is it the CEO? Is it the board? Is it like a divisional manager?
It really does depend. So we are working with boards and executive teams from that perspective. We are then also working with divisional teams. We also work with HR because we want to democratize this. We don't want this to just be reliance on consultants to do this. We see tapping into HR in terms of business partners.
Because HR they've got the L&D budget, I guess, to kind of fund this stuff.
They do have an L&D budget to fund these things. They're also, paying lots of money for engagement surveys and all these sorts of things that how many of those have we done, and how much change has actually happened from them?
Nothing. I've never seen anything change.
Right. And that's another factor, right? Because we look at that and go, well, why is that? And you think about it, most engagement outcomes that come from that are like, oh, we'll do an organizational program on pick a topic.
Yeah.
Right. And it happens across here, not at the team level. And so the team doesn't own that change. The team's like, I don't care. That's not relevant for me.
So
and they reject it.
Yeah. So what you're saying is so logical. It makes so much sense, but it's so against the grain.
Yep.
So I'll tell you what you normally think. Oh, we've got a leadership offsite. We need a trainer in for a day. It's motivation. It's accountability. It's emotional intelligence. It's how do we be more woke? Like we'll pick a topic and we'll get someone in for 2 days to run a workshop.
Correct.
Because that's just what HR's used to buying.
Correct.
But now you're saying, no, it's not about that. It's I'm going to be here, a bit at the start, bit in the middle, bit at the end. But I'm going to give you this 6 month, 12 months window of organizational change.
Yep.
How do you gain credibility with your idea? Because it's different.
It is different. So the first thing is the data, right? And that what we're basing this off has a fact base to it, but also it's based off their data. So it's not around.
So what would be an example of that data? Like, how would you use that to sell this?
So okay. So one, it's a very detailed assessment, right? So it takes about 20 minutes for a team member to fill it out. What that we do, obviously compile that with the team.
And then will you do that pro bono at the start, or the clients will pay for that? So
pay for that.
So we'll have some engagement. They've got some interest in you.
Yep.
So we'll pay you a couple of dollars and we'll get this engagement, like initial analysis done.
Yeah. So get that assessment done. And what that does is gives them a team report. Now that team report, kind of like, there's lots of other assessment reports.
How do you even sell that first body of work? Because I've never been an HR manager. I've been a CEO a few times. And I'd be like, I don't know. I've just never done this. I mean, you present well. It sounds really credible. But how do you evidence this will actually make any difference? Because doing a 2-day offsite is so much more fun, so much more easier.
Yeah, it's what we call entertainment.
Oh, totally is. Totally is. Or edutainment is the other one.
Edutainment, yeah, exactly right. Yeah, edutainment, yeah, leadership entertainment courses, right? So
how do you convince the CEOs and the board members, or the CFOs or HR managers, that this is actually a better approach because it's a fundamentally different one?
So the messages are slightly different depending. So let's start with HR, right?
Yeah. So let's start with CEOs because that tends to be the general audience.
So if we're talking about CEOs, it is around, do you want reliable and sustainable increases in employee engagement? Do you want less turnover? And do you want higher productivity? right?
But how do I know you're going to give it to me?
Because we've done it with teams over multiple measurement points over longer periods of time. And actually probably one of the most proudest things where part of that data is when we've looked at those teams over those multiple measurement points, one of the things we ask is around team tenure. And over those measurement points, team tenure has actually gone down. So what that means is that there has been some turnover in that team.
Some have selected out kind of thing.
Right?
Yeah.
Yet the team performance has improved. So what that tells us is the practices we're putting in place stick even when people leave. So new people come in and they're indoctrinated in these new processes, new practices that are put in place, and team performance improves. So it's sustainable. It's not a one-off sugar hit like a leadership offsite.
Let me give you a couple of analogies. Have you heard the concept of enterprise operating systems?
Yep.
So just for anyone who doesn't know, so basically what it is, it's the theory is there's a standard way to run an organization, and there's about half a dozen. There's metronome, there's EOS, there's, EOS abstraction, there's all different ones. So I've been on probably 5 or 6 boards where we've tried to implement it, and we've never succeeded for more than 6 months, even with an external person. Because that level of change is so hard. You got to do this, you got to do that. And I've seen it work once and it was fantastic, but it's near impossible, even when we have a consultant coming in every 2 weeks to actually have that change stick. That would be my negative Nelly in my mind, being like, okay, I hear what you're saying, Danny.
Yeah.
I just don't believe you because I've tried this so many times and it just hasn't come together.
Yeah, I hear that. I do hear that. And the difference is that when we're talking about those sorts of changes, they are things that are over and above someone's day job.
It's more work.
Right? It's more work. And so what we talk about here in the changes we make are not more work. They're things in your day-to-day. Like every day you prioritize tasks. Every day you hold each other to account. So every day you problem solve together. And so it's doing those things better that you would do anyway. So it's not more work. And that's one of the biggest differences. And that to me is, that changes everything.
And give me an idea, like what kind of time commitment over 6 months would a typical team member need in terms of hours on this program? Like how heavy is it?
So not much at all. So, if we think of a general program end to end, we're talking 20 minutes for the assessment.
Yep, nothing. Yep.
Right. We then have a half an hour call where we say, here is your report. Here's how to read it. We pair people up because there's science in, if I'm standing up in front of someone saying, this is my view, I will temper that. If I pair with just one other person and we share and have a joint opinion, that opinion will be stronger and I will share that. And so we pair people up, then we come back in about a week or so later and we'll do, depending on the team, between a 2 and a 4 hour workshop. And in that team, we'll share those and they will build a joint roadmap of here are the things we're going to do. Here are the commitments we're going to make with each other. And then 6 months time, we do a remeasure.
How do you make sure they do that? Like, do they just naturally do it because they've credited themselves? Do you have like daily, weekly check-ins?
So we do a nudge with the team lead every 2 months. And then on obviously the third one of those, then we do a remeasure with that team. So that way because that's, part of the fee to do the whole thing is you get your 2 remeasures. So most people, because they paid for it.
Yep, they'll get it done.
They'll get it done.
And that's what you come on site, spend an hour or 2 with them, see how they're going, is it? Or
Yeah. Sometimes they go on. So, executive teams generally be more hands-on because they're more needy.
Yep.
All
us execs are special people.
I know.
We totally are. Yeah.
Right. And so you do that more. But then when it comes to more operational teams, and this comes to the message from, the CEO message versus the HR message, from an HR perspective, people get into HR because they want to make people's lives better at work, right? Unfortunately, most HR professionals spend their time pushing processes and paper and
documentation everywhere, right?
Right. Yeah. And so what we're aiming to do and what we have started doing is accrediting HR business partners in our approach. So you don't have to rely on consultants to do the work.
Like a certified top team
They're
builder.
a certified top team coach. And they effectively order an assessment. That team does the assessment and then they can coach that team internally. They can roll
through different teams.
It becomes part of the core capability of HR. So for us, it's unlocking what HR professionals got into HR to do with data that's defensible, with an approach that works and has lasting impact, and that they as HR professionals can get more meaning out of what they do.
Yeah.
And so that's why the message for the CEO versus HR is quite different.
Yeah.
The impact messages are still the same, but this does more things in one. So from, HR professionals, they're trying to do engagement. They're looking at psychosocial safety. They're looking at, recruitment. They're looking at all sorts of things. When we look at this tool, this can touch on so many of those through one. And as a HR professional, you get to be part of that process as opposed to just, we'll get some consultant in to run something. So no, they want to be hands-on.
And they get to learn it, they build a new skill, and they enjoy the fruits of their labor kind of thing.
Correct. Yeah, they get to see the impact firsthand.
So I get the problem right now. So, how do I get impact implementation by top teams versus AI? So I get the pitch for an HR manager, but if I'm a CEO and I'm a board member, I'm like, got two proposals on my table. Eliminate 20% of my workforce with AI bots, or make my workforce 20% more effective. I feel like every day of the week, I'd get rid of 20% of my work stuff because it'll make more money. Bots don't make the same mistakes that people make. They work all the time. I mean, the analogy it'd be, the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s. It was all about, for example, the reason that, they call engines have horsepower, they're comparing it to a horse.
Yep.
And they're like, hey, you buy this engine, you don't need that horse.
Yep.
And this engine doesn't take sick leave and doesn't need to go to the vet and those kind of things.
Yep.
That's what people are pushing now.
Yeah.
And I bet anybody that sold horse training back then or, sold manicures for horses or horseshoes and all those kind of things, they were probably under threat because there were just less and less horses around.
Yeah.
And you might argue, well, there's less horses, so you got to treat them better or, whatever, right? But people actually thought, I want to get rid of my horse and I want to go to a steam engine of some type. Is that what's happening today to you?
We haven't seen it quite like that. What I would say is some of that has got there's a lot of truth in that. And I would say that, if organizations are looking at AI in terms of removing some of those lower value procedural things, you should.
Yeah. And it's given, right? It's going to happen.
Absolutely. Right. And, even from a HR point of view, use AI to free up your HR professionals to do the work they actually should be doing, which is the human to human stuff that AI can't do.
Yeah. And as CEOs, we're super nice and be like, we're not getting rid of anyone. We're just going to make your lives better. We'll just get rid of the 20% of the mundane tasks that you do. But don't worry, in the CFO's budget, 20% of the heads are gone.
Yeah.
Because we'll completely consolidate.
100%.
So how do you compete against that investment decision? Because I guess that's the crux of your issue, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it kind of depends on the organization and the industry. Some have a level of latent capacity in it that actually AI just unlocks. And so there's no point fighting that, in my opinion. And whereas there's other industries that are much more, human heavy, and that may sustain or may not. But I look at it as, those organizations that will make the most out of AI are those that actually have the right humans to actually work with it. And so, if the future comes true of everyone's going to have a team of agents working for
running
them,
around doing stuff for them all the time,
right? Then the humans to humans still have to interact. They've still got to work together because they've got to achieve that broader organizational objective.
So I believe you, but I think that's 10 years away.
I agree.
And so for the next decade, I'm all about how do I get base Copilot proficiency?
Yeah.
How do I teach my guys how to use Claude or Claude Design? Or how do I get, I'm on the board of 3-4 dev companies. Almost no one uses AI for development because we haven't done enough work to try to train these developers on how to use AI, and they kind of hack around, but they don't do it very effectively, not like a startup would.
Yeah.
So the investment decision is, well, do I want to get a base level of expertise in AI, or do I want to build a better high-performing team with this framework? I'm guessing that's the crux of the challenge that you have. Because as a CEO or HR manager, you kind of think, where do I allocate my dollars?
Yep. And so if I've got, if I'm thinking from a HR point of view, if I've got my HR business partners and I'm trying to get the maximum value out of them, then the answer to that is kind of a little bit of both. Right. So how do you actually ensure that people are trained up on all these kinds of things without having to, massively increase your training budget to then go after that?
Well, I'd say it's not a bit of both, because I think the base AI literacy in corporate is so low.
Oh, so low. Yeah.
It's close to nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, often it's because companies, most IT managers, they'll block Gemini and Claude and ChatGPT because it's fair. They're worried that their data will be sucked out and some model will learn off it. So people just don't use it in the office.
Yeah.
So the base knowledge is so low. Then if I'm an HR manager or a CEO, I'll be like, I've got to get base literacy on AI.
Hmm.
And again, is that more important than doing some, trust leadership? So
Hmm.
what do you call it? Top team? Is that leadership training, trust training? What do you call it?
It's
Or team training?
Well, it's not even training. It's really just team development,
Team development.
team building, and in a world where you're talking about people's jobs changing from AI, some more slowly, some more faster than others.
Yeah, they're all
Right?
different paces. Yep.
Right. And so if I'm a team of developers and I need to adopt AI in terms of how it either augments what I do, automates what I do, accelerates what I do, then the pressure on those people to get the job done is not going down. If anything, the expectation is each developer
Will do more stuff.
Will do more stuff. And so if I've got a team of developers that are in that, what's the likely outcome? The likely outcome is burnout, right? Them leaving either that job or the career altogether.
Yep.
Which we know would be detrimental, right? And so if you think about it from that point of view, how do you assure that those people stay around to be those future leaders of bots and in a way that is sustainable? Because some of them might be teaching some of those bots to do some of that stuff for them in that
So
world.
the counterpoint to that would be, I don't know, let's just say if it was a finance department.
Mhm.
Yeah, I kind of get it. Look, you can't do AI is not quite as disruptive in that space yet.
Yes.
It'll probably next year it will be, but today, look, 80% of finance is probably still the same. I get that. Look, I'm probably above Copilot implementation. There's probably not a lot I'm going to do there. So it kind of makes sense. We want to do that plus, a bit of team development work. But in a lot of other areas like admin, accounts payable, development, reception, help desk, where there's such a gap between where organizations are today and where the baseline of capability that exists in the world is. There's this huge gulf one needs to probably kind of cross first. And if I was on the board and I saw your proposal, I'd be like, yep, great idea, CEO. But is this the next best thing we should do? Isn't the next best thing we should do is get base level proficiency on AI? Let's see how many team members we have left. And then we'll have this new team, and that's the one to kind of do team development on.
Yeah, and it does, and it does kind of depend though. Like for different industries, it does vary. Like that's the honest answer to that. Because if I look at a call center, the level of disruption in call center is huge. Yeah. So should you do top teams with each team in a call center? I'd argue probably not. The reality is that that's very transient.
They're going to change
it's
anyway.
Transient anyway. And so, are you going to get bang for buck from that? No. In your more, let's call it core functions, should you be? Absolutely. Because if anything, they're the ones that are going to be possibly disrupted in a more systematic way from AI, and actually how that team works together to make the most of that is important. And so to your point before about, how do we get developers to use more AI in their job day to day? Well, how do you as a team of developers leverage AI to get that done? Because it may not be the same between all those developers. And if anything, if everyone's doing it in their own way, then that's going to be detrimental.
So I wonder if the solution to this lies in actually what you just said, that it's not necessarily just team development. It's team development as they bleed into an AI first world.
Yeah.
Because it's a foundational disruption which is happening in every single team.
Yeah.
So how does one create the right organizational design and team dynamics that obviously they've got to work together and trust each other, all that kind of good stuff, but they'll actually leverage AI. So we're not looking like a 20% improvement, look like a 10x improvement.
Yeah.
And it's how do I actually build that team for you?
Yeah. And so, part of that,
do you pitch it that way or do people receive it that way?
We haven't really pitched it that way as yet. No, I do like that, like sort of where that's heading though. And especially in an AI world where the level of uncertainty increases, especially at the moment because of this inflection point. But if you think about maximizing the value of any given team, the context of the day is what's important as well. And so as a team, if we're going to embrace AI, because actually it is so important to our role, then, well, what is the purpose of our team? Right?
Yep.
What are the goals of our team? how do we fit into the broader context of the organization? So why is it important that we adopt AI? Why?
Yep.
Right?
What's it going to do? It's going to take my job anyway. Why I want to take it on?
Right.
Yep.
And so
why I'm going to train the machine. Yep.
Right. And so if I'm sitting there going, hang on a minute, if I adopt AI, I'm making myself redundant. Why would I do that for? I want to make that as difficult as possible. I want to train anything.
I'm going to fight it.
Right. I'm going to fight it. And so if you don't want people to fight it, then you need to re-baseline why they're there.
But I think the end result will be the same, but I think it's a foundationally different pitch. The pitch as I hear it is, okay, so we're going to, every organization, you'll have your AI program, you have your Copilot program, or whatever Gemini, whatever you're using. But the problem to solve is how do you design the right team with the right incentives, accountability that best leverages that?
Correct.
Because I reckon exec level, yep, it's all about them working themselves and 20% gain is amazing. But 2 or 3 levels down, it's, how do I get a 10x gain out of this? Because I might go from 200 call center staff to 20 call center staff. And how am I actually going to design that team? Because I guarantee no organization has someone internally that can do that.
No.
They don't. That's why they need externals like yourself.
Yeah. And so I think there's, from a call center point of view versus developer versus a construction site, they're all going to be quite different. And so in that world of AI, the way that we would see that is the underlying, I suppose, the foundation of, what is it? So when we look at what high performing teams do have versus ones that don't have, we see that they have a clear understanding of the external context that they are part of. So why are they part of the broader organization? And more than that, how does the broader organization fit into the market? So the teams that have that have something. Second thing then is, as a team, are we clear on what our goals, what our objective is, why each of us as individuals are on this team, what we bring? They're the two kind of big things. So if you think about those two things, and then you've got your practices that are at play. And so what are, when it comes to accountability, when it comes to prioritization, when it comes to problem solving, how do we do that as a team? And so setting that clear definition of how does that change in an AI world, so that way we can have that 10x impact that you're talking about. So if you used contact center as an example, if we had the regional management team for said contact center, which might have a director and 10 direct reports kind of thing that are all team leaders of these teams, what's the objective of that team? And so, that team's objective is to completely modernize that entire call center. Why is that important? What are they buying into? What objectives have we set to them? What are the timeframes on that? What are their goals? So often we just go, hey, do some AI stuff, but to what end? And what we the risk that at the moment is because people are moving so fast, they're not being clear with that with teams to say, well, your team's objective has shifted. Your objective is now this, and your goals are now this. And therefore, given that situation, what needs to change in the way that we work as a team? Do we need new team members?
Yep. Does the team change? I mean, but I guess the crux of what I'm thinking is that rather than trying to be top teams versus AI, it's hey, use top teams to maximize AI.
Completely.
AI's
I agree
impact.
with you. Yeah.
Because if you came to me and said, hey, what I'll do is actually build a capability of your call center exec team, the call center plus the couple of direct reports, to go from 200 to 20 staff. I'd pay for that every day of the week. And twice on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because that's a fundamental capability that almost no organization has internally. And it's probably the exact same framework. It's probably just you're maximizing for something slightly different. It might not just be team performance. It might be team performance hyper optimized for cost reduction.
Yeah.
Of which AI might be a huge factor.
Yeah. And that comes down to, really clearly establishing what's the purpose of this team. And, has the advent of AI changed the purpose of that team? And because not a lot of thought's given to that, and not a lot of thought's given to the implications of not doing that, then you go, well, do we actually get that impact out of whatever it is that we're doing? So I completely agree. Like the underlying foundation is the same. The pivot there is then looking at it going, well, okay, in a world of AI, what are the parts that are more amplified in that model? Which parts are now even more important at this fork in the road, junction, inflection point, whatever you want
And
to
what that
use.
would do if I was on a board or a CEO on the companies you were pitching for, it'll help me pick out that's the team I want Danny to work with.
Yeah.
It might be, I don't know, I've got an accounts payable team of 20 people. Hugely, that team probably should be like 1, if not 0.
Yeah.
That's the team I want Danny to work with for the head of that department or, the head of finance, whatever is in that team, to go drive out 20 headcount for me and help work with that team, take them on that journey for 6 months. Because implementing that, I can't outsource. Like we have that knowledge, but I can implement the knowledge about how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what you would kind of bring.
Yeah, that's right.
So in that world, I mean, I guess that I don't see any kind of major conflict between, if you pitch it like that, between you versus AI. If you pitch it as team development, if I was on a board, I'd probably never buy it.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't buy it. Because I'd be like, yeah, I get it. Don't really believe it. I've done it in the past. Sure, this bloke says he's better, but I know 50-50 chance. He might be right, might be wrong. But if you pitch to me, hey, I'll develop your team to embrace AI and either, improve customer service or drive down costs, whatever the metric is that I care about, every day of the week, I reckon you get work.
Yeah.
How does that sit with you, that slightly different approach?
I think, from a benefits point of view, as I said, it depends. It's all about the team, the industry they're in terms of what it is they're driving for. For some clients, it's growth, right? And for others, it's actually depends on what business they're in.
Yeah, it might be growth, might be profit, might be impact.
Yeah,
whatever
it might be risk, right? It depends on the organization. So tapping into that underlying need, for whatever that might be, and you really, I suppose, hedging or not hedging, hanging the outcome on that, really.
And I think what it is figure out what their underlying need is, but have AI as part of the solution.
Yeah.
Or have the adoption of AI as part of the solution.
Yeah.
Because I feel like almost every need in the world now has some AI component to it.
Yeah.
In the same way, like, every need in the world has some electricity component to it, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're working on a hammer, which, construction site might be less electricity. In the same way, 15 years ago, every need in the world almost had some internet related to it.
Yeah.
5 years ago, every need in the world had some smartphone relation to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think every need in the world now has some AI need to it.
Yeah.
Foundational structural changes we've been talking about, but I reckon if you pitched it that way.
Yeah, it's interesting to say, how do we, creating high performing teams that through AI, not in terms of, in terms of how they use AI to overachieve on those goals and those objectives.
Yeah.
And that level of, depending on the quantum of change that's available, depends on the level of the team in which you're working with. So
and if they're a bit more handsy, then there's less AI impact.
Yeah.
But if they're very transactional on computers doing the same thing, there's probably greater impact.
Yeah. And also, what you said before, like, for example, that accounts payable, accounts receivable team, right? So if you look at that from an opportunity point of view, it's 90% reduction size of that team. Well, you don't actually work with that team. You're working with
there'll be some finance department or something.
You're working with the team above that says, okay, well, as a team, our goal is, the AI of our function. That is our job. And so when you set that as that objective, then, well, what are those processes and practices that you're going to be putting in place? And also what I'll add to that, though, is why? Right. So what is the broader purpose that we're doing this for? Because as a leader that's of that, working with these people for however long I've worked with them before, looking at them around the room going, so it's my job to not have any of them around anymore. That's hard. Right? Which is people why people get consultants in to tell them how much the benefit is. They can blame someone else for it. So there is that, putting in place. And so if that is your objective, then that means that some practices become more important than others. So if my job is, part of that role is around cost reduction, then I need to have some slightly different things that I do versus if my role is around growth.
There might be different settings.
Right. That's right.
And it might be done if you worked in a marketing department, for example, right? You might not get rid of anyone in marketing, but use AI to hyper-personalize content and optimize the ad spend and all those kind of things.
Correct.
But I guess what it makes me think is perhaps the lens will be that your framework that you and Katie, your partner, that you've developed, perhaps it's evergreen. It'll apply in any situation over a long period of time. Yeah. But I think just right now in this narrow period of time for the next 2 to 5 years, I think you'll probably get outsized returns in butting that up with an AI implementation spin.
Yeah.
because that's the foundational change. That's the foundational problem every board, every CEO is struggling with.
Yeah.
Because, like, I've been in board meetings, and you'll have one guy say, "Hey, I heard such and such company went from 40 to 4 developers. How come we aren't doing that?"
Yeah.
You never hear about anyone being like, "Oh, trust is important, right? We want to get our teams to trust each other more. We want a 20% uptick in trust and performance." And I think in 3 years, it'll be something else.
Yeah.
You remember when it was like IoT was the thing?
Yeah.
Remember when big data was the thing?
Yeah.
And then it was the internet, and there was something before that, I'm sure.
There's always the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think AI is the thing, and it's real, and the impact is probably greater.
Yeah.
And you just maybe just want to have that lens as you pitch this.
No, I mean, if I think of every client I work with at the moment, they're all asking AI everything, right? And so, every executive team is always looking at, well, what are we AI? And that's the first thing on so much. Any investment, anyone's doing their CapEx budgeting at the moment, if they haven't already done it for the end of financial year.
We care about nothing else.
We care about nothing else. Right? How much you're spending on AI. And even to that point of that being a metric, right?
It is totally a metric in some companies where, like, how many agents does each employee have?
Exactly.
So they'll set up OpenClaw or whatever Google, studio they have, and say, hey, once a month, we're going to measure how many agents you have. But I think your pitch is that method will be fundamentally ineffective. You'll try for 3 months, you'll give up, and it will crumble. But hey, I got this top team framework that will make that sustainable. So you guys will legitimately get the impact. And the focus is on AI growth. Tomorrow it might be AI cost reduction. And it might be, I don't know, robotics in 3 years' time when you have humanoid robots, or in 10 years' time. But your framework will just kind of keep adjusting. And you'll just optimize for something else.
That's right.
Whatever the people want. How does that kind of sound?
No, that sounds good. I think that's it's a great channel/avenue into things, and tapping into the trend of the day around, well, hey, how do you get the most value out of that, and sustained value? Because I think about it from a broader perspective, and arguably there's an overuse of AI on things, and the things that are redundant, right? And it's like, we're running AI on all sorts of things. You're like, do we really need to do that? I mean, and if the cost of AI was much realer for people, then would that be there?
Yeah. And I think it reminds me of something you said, that you like hard things. So I think the hard thing was coming up with this framework. You don't want selling it to be hard.
No.
You want that to be as easy, smooth, lowest path of resistance as possible.
Yeah. And when as you're right, and when as we're competing for that dollar, and if 99 cents in the dollar is going to AI, it's like, well, hey, how do you pair with that?
Yeah, and I think part of it is that a lot of that spend is going to like AI infrastructure and licenses. And I think your pitch obviously is that actually won't be enough.
No.
You'll fundamentally prove yourself you'll prove it ineffective. And we'll either start now or in 6 months' time. We can talk again. But at some point you realize there's a organizational people change that needs to happen. And I will buddy up with you, and I'll help you through this AI disruption. Yeah,
I mean, I was at a conference, a field service conference a couple of weeks ago, and
I still go to those conferences.
I still go to some. I got. I'm not sure how I got in. As a vendor, you never get into these things, right?
Yeah.
Without paying
some marketing fee or some
silly amount of money for nothing, to hear about things you already know about. And so I got into this one, and interestingly enough, every conversation about AI was about the human side of it. And it was about the change management. Like, there was barely any, if any, conversation about infrastructure and costs and all this kind of stuff. I mean, unfortunately, there was barely any discussion about the benefit of it either. But hey, there was at least a realization of this is actually about the people. Yeah.
I think what it is, it's because the benefits are almost somewhat assumed.
Yeah.
You just assume it's better. You assume ChatGPT and Claude, they're doing all the infra for us better than we could ever do it. But the roadblocks people are facing now is how do I get my people to change?
Yeah. That's right.
That's a historical problem that's probably existed forever.
That's right. Yeah. And if you can build that into, the way the team works, even to the point of, being an quote unquote AI first team or something like that, right? That is your objective, and you've got objectives around the number of whatever else is written by code or in
whatever the metric is,
et cetera, right? Whatever those metrics are, then that starts to inform that. Because one of the things that we find is organizations have goals and they have metrics and KPIs. Individuals do, but teams rarely do. And that is a gap.
That makes sense, yeah.
Right. And so from a data point of view, here's an interesting one, right? Out of every single team we've done this with, except one, we asked the question of, do you have aligned goals? And 80% of teams, 90% say yes. Of those same teams, we also then asked them, what are your goals?
I don't know.
All right. 80 to 90% of them are not aligned. And so the dangerous thing there is we're at a table in a team and I'm going, I know what the goals are. And I think you're on the same page because I think you're on the same page, but we're not. And so we're actually going in different directions. And so if you think about that from where are we going with AI perspective, if you don't get clarity on what the team's goals are, and you don't have team goals that align to individual goals, and if you don't have individual like incentives, then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You're going to have the team just pulling apart from each other and going nowhere.
And you'll have ineffective implementation.
Yep.
You'll spend all this money on Microsoft licenses. You'll get nothing out of it.
Yep.
And you'll be like, oh, so what do we do?
What
and
do we
then
do?
competitors might succeed and you'll be like, how come they're more effective or more efficient
That's right.
than we are?
Yeah. And so rather than looking at it, each individual gets targeted on, if you look at that as teams, teams being the unit within an organization, if teams have targets to work in certain ways, then you are empowering them to achieve that target as a team. And that means they're more likely within that team to work together on it and help each other, which gets you that flywheel effect I discussed before.
It's a fascinating concept because I've always thought the atomic unit in an organization is a person. But I guess you're fundamentally saying the atomic unit is actually a team.
Yeah.
And that's the level at which someone needs to optimize and work with.
And think about it, right? Within an organization, teams, they endure.
Yeah.
People come and go. Right. So in a team leader gets promoted to another team. That team doesn't just disband and dissolve.
People will cycle through, but
someone
the team
else
stays.
comes through, but the team usually stays. And so that to me is the persistent, enduring element is the team.
Yeah.
And that's why if you can actually have those teams high performing, when those people come and go, the high performance will sustain. And that's why we say it's that unit, not the individual.
How long have you been doing the top teams kind of?
We were doing the research for about 8 years, and over that team working with, over that period working with, real teams and real businesses to do it, not uni kids at lunchtime.
What kind of success rate do you get out of every 100 pitches you do? Like how often do people kind of get it and do it, or how often do they do something else or do nothing?
Well, that's a good question. So I would say everybody we speak to about it is really intrigued and really interested. The number of conversions, geez, off the top of my head, I don't know. I probably should know that.
Is it like single digits? Because I'd imagine most pitches are probably single digit conversions.
No, higher than that. No. It would definitely double digits. It would be more than 1 in 10.
And when you lose it, what do you tend to lose it to?
No budget was one. Other ones are, one of them is, we've already done a survey this year.
Already done that. Yep. Okay.
We've done the engagement survey. I'm doing another survey. Or our business has done too many surveys. That's one that we get a lot of.
Because I guess the challenge with your pitches you gave it to me is, I know it's not the same as other stuff, but if I hadn't spoken to you for an hour, I'd be like, "Oh, that sounds homogenous." Someone's saying it's a team. Yeah, teams, we get it. Yeah, we do all this stuff. We do this all the time. It's harder unless I've done more work with you, spent more time with you to differentiate it in my mind. So I can get why people would say, "Oh, we did that last year," kind of thing. Or we'll do it again we do it every July. No, we'll do it in September after bonuses if they're good. Every September we'll do our surveys and we'll give you a call and come next September. Yeah, so I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, we've heard that from clients, and so I mean, as part of
as in we'll do it after the bonus.
No, both of those things are definitely heard. So no, well, what we do now, so we as part of our assessment, we build into it all the common things. So we have employee engagement score as part of our assessment.
So they get that stuff as well.
So they get it as well.
Yeah.
And so all of those, because there's so many things around, even in terms of social safety, etc. We measure that.
Okay.
Right.
So they get all the hygiene stuff.
They get all the hygiene
which
stuff
actually
anyway.
means nothing, but they want it because that's what they're used to getting.
Well,
it doesn't actually mean something.
Well, no, it does mean something, and they're used to getting it, I would say. So, it means something, but the thing is, the actions aren't effective to move it. It's the usual actions. They don't move those dials.
Yes.
So you see those, high, low retention rates or high turnover rates, and they put in place a program around
regardless of what they do.
then it's like enterprise-wide program. It's like that didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas we know if we do it at the team level, it will move something.
Okay, fair enough. So how do we go? So the problem we're trying to solve is how do I get impact, impact / implementation of top teams versus AI? How do you reckon we went? Like, what would you take away from today?
So my take is that, to your point before around it being an evergreen framework, that to me, I think that evergreen framework is for me a big one. And then how do we leverage that framework to maximize AI adoption in the roles where it matters most, and in the roles where there is a measurable outcome that is at risk of not being achieved unless it's done differently. Because we all know change management always fails, not always, but mostly fails. And AI is an exercise in change management.
I mean, I legitimately say, like on the 6 boards I'm on, if we ever got a pitch like that, like we'd sign up straight away.
Yeah.
Because it's a common problem we're all facing. We don't really know how to solve it. And if someone's saying they've got a proven methodology and now it's just slightly pivoted towards AI adoption, I don't think you'd get him any no's.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think every day of the week, everyone want to sign up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Anything else you think we've missed or you think we should chat about?
No, I think that's good. I think that to me sort of rounded it out really quite nicely. It's good sort of balanced perspective, and I appreciated your different perspectives on things, because we haven't worked a lot with more technology oriented organizations yet. A lot of obviously kind of naturally in a way it's been more people focused businesses that are probably under less disruption, frankly, than many others.
So my lens is
interesting.
3 of my boards are tech, 3 of my boards are people companies. But even in people companies, we have someone doing AP.
Oh yeah,
we have someone doing
correct.
Reception. We'll have a fleet of EAs that we can probably disrupt now as well.
Yeah.
So they all kind of exist. I think the tech ones are just the easy analogies to make.
Yes. Yeah.
So I reckon the pitch would work everywhere.
I think you're right. No, I'm just thinking through my head now of, we were at a conference earlier this week, and just thinking of the conversations I've had during that conference, and going, okay, yep. I mean, what out of the 12 speakers, I think there was 4 of those topics around AI. And so
yeah. And the other small takeaway I might suggest is that it should never be you versus AI. Like, embrace the beast, embrace the hype, and just figure out how to use that to maximize.
Yeah, that's good.
Because every hype, there's pain in implementation.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, companies are only now getting their big data together, and that was like 7-8 years ago. That was a thing.
Yeah, and those that have it in order are the ones that are going to get the most out of AI, right?
Yep. Totally.
Because it's like, it's about hype cycles, but it's not actually really. Most of the times those hypes just build on each other.
Correct. Yeah. Because create something foundational. Yeah. Like, you need an IoT, you need a whole bunch more data, then you got a bunch more data, you can do more analytics, and then you can automate stuff.
Correct.
They'll build another.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention or wanted to chat about?
No, I think that's
perfect.
Yeah.
Well, last question from my side, then I'll get you to do a plug on your company as well if you want. The question I ask all my guests: what is something you've always known to be true that later on you found out actually wasn't?
I like that question. I'm going to use that again for someone else. I like that. I think it's around. Okay, so I suppose it's okay. So earlier on, if I think about I'll always start with the end of it in mind, actually. So, one of the things I kind of say now is, don't blame the player, blame the game, right? So people play by the rules that they're given. But most people, when I look at that, are not necessarily looking to play within the rules, but they're trying to play toward the edge of the rules. So the earlier in my career was very much around, you put rules in place and people will follow. Whereas in reality, people are just trying to get right up into the edge of everything all the time.
Yeah.
But the point there is that it's not the people. And so the earlier truth was, it's all about the people. The reality is it's the rules.
The rules in the games are designed that way.
The rules of the game are there, and people will play within those rules.
Yeah.
Whereas in many places, when you have less rules, you get less gameplay. And so, that's been my experience, is that when you create all these different rules and whatever it is that you're going to get a whole bunch of gameplay. And so my earlier thing was always around structure and creating those rules and frameworks. And now it's much more around, hang on a second, how do we strip back those rules, strip back those frameworks let people, work more freely. And so that way there's less gameplay and there's more playing.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, just close up. How do people get a hold of you? We'll link you in the show notes.
Yep.
But how do they engage you? How does this all kind of work? What's your plug?
Yeah, so you can reach out to us if you're specifically around top teams. You go to topteams.com.au. That's the best place. You can find out all the information there. Feel free to email us.
Change it to topteams.ai. That'd be my recommendation.
So I do have one of those URLs. Yeah. So on that, the reason I didn't is because actually .ai URLs don't show up in organic searches as highly yet.
I did not know that. There you go.
Yeah,
okay.
So I had it as, we actually had it as that originally. Not topteams.ai because someone else owns that and was trying to rip me off for it. Yeah. I had a slightly different version, but I had that. But we weren't getting any search results. We weren't getting any ranking because search engines weren't ranking for it yet.
There you go.
So there you go. So I switched to .com.au.
Okay.
So it is .com.
Yeah.
So .com.au. Feel free to email us at hello@topteams.com.au. Or you can, if you want to catch up, just more generally from a consulting sort of broader perspective, Danny at structuredcreative.com.au.
Perfect. And we'll include that in the notes as well.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for your
very
time.
much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do want to be a guest, make sure you hit me up and do follow me on socials and make sure you check out future episodes. Thanks, guys.